Hi guys! Today's video is going to be about how to properly type math problems into our calculator so that our calculator will give us the correct answer. Sometimes we'll type something into our calculator and it'll give us an answer, and we're trying to trust it because it's a calculator, it knows what it's doing, but maybe we typed it in wrong, and so it's telling us what it thinks the right answer is, but we didn't type it in right, then it doesn't actually know the right answer. So I wanted to make sure I went over a couple of the buttons with you and the proper way to type things into your calculator. First of all, this is the type of calculator that I'm using. It's a Texas Instruments TI 30X IIS. This type of calculator can be used for all of your math classes for high school, and it can probably be used for all of your science classes. So it's a good investment to have. It's a very user-friendly calculator. It's easy to type things in accurately. The first thing I want to talk to you about is minus versus negatives. Because a lot of times we'll think that a minus sign and a negative sign are the same symbol, but your calculator does not think that. Your calculator knows the difference between a subtraction sign and a negative sign. And so it's really important that we're using the correct button for each one. For example, if I have 3 minus 5 and I want to get the correct answer from the calculator, I'm going to use this button over here for my minus sign. So I'm going to type in 3 minus 5, and it should give me the correct answer, -2. Now there's another button that kind of looks like a minus sign. It's this one down here, right next to the decimal point. That's the negative symbol. If I accidentally type in 3 minus 5, still looks like it says 3 minus 5 on the calculator, my calculator won't know what I'm talking about. It actually gives us a syntax error because it says, I don't know what 3 negative 5 means. Do you want me to subtract? Do you want me to multiply by -5? What are you talking about? So it gave us an error sign. And so it's really important, again, that we know the difference between subtracting and between making the number negative. When you're typing on your calculator, you should be able to tell which one you typed in because they're actually different sizes. -5 has a smaller line and -5 has a bigger line. So if you see the larger line on your calculator screen, that's a subtraction, and the smaller one is a negative. Okay, now hopefully this one will know what I'm doing. So this problem is -5 minus 5, and that gives me -10. But if I accidentally, instead of typing this negative sign, if I accidentally type a minus sign there, so let's say I wanted to do -5 minus 5, and I thought, oh, -5 minus 5. Well, look, it types in this whole extra thing on my calculator. That means answer. So what your calculator is going to do is it's going to take the answer from the previous problem and it's going to subtract a 5, and then it's going to subtract another 5. And so your calculator got confused because they said, oh, you're starting the problem with a subtraction sign. I don't have anything to subtract from. And it put in this whole extra thing. So again, just really pay attention. Is it a negative symbol or is it a subtraction symbol? And make sure to use the right button on your calculator. The next topic that I want to talk to you about is exponents. There are some exponent buttons on your calculator. Very specifically, there is a button that will allow you to do squares. So there's a specific button just for squares. It's right here. It says x squared. So what you would do is you would type the number in first. So if I want to do 5 squared, I would type 5, and then I can hit this square button, and hopefully it'll tell me 5 squared is 25. Now, we're going to talk about negatives again because there's lots of different ways that we can write -5 squared, and they all mean different things. Okay, so let's start with, what if I wrote -5 squared like this? Well, let's type that in the calculator and see what we get. So I'm going to use my negative symbol. Remember, not the minus sign. Negative 5 squared is negative 25. So we got a different answer. Now, we got a negative 25 for this. And you might be wondering, why is negative 5 squared negative 25? Well, the reason is that when you write the problem like this, you're actually not squaring the negative 5. What's happening here is you're squaring the 5 and you're multiplying it by a negative 1. By the negative sign being out here, that means that the negative symbol is not going to be squared. If you want to square the number negative 5, you're going to need to put the negative 5 in a parentheses with a square on the outside. This means do negative 5 times negative 5. And let's check and see if we type it like that into our calculator, hopefully it will tell us positive 25. So I'm going to do parentheses, negative 5, close my parentheses, and then square on the outside. And this time I get a positive 25 because this time it does actually want us to do negative 5 times negative 5. Now, the other thing I want you to be very careful with is I want you to be careful when you're using these parentheses to not accidentally put the square on the inside. Because if you accidentally put the square on the inside instead of the outside, again, you're going to get that answer of negative 25. So these are just little mistakes that I see often in class. And I want to make sure that you guys are really paying attention to the notation and the way that it's written. If you type things in the way that they're written, including all of the symbols in the right spots, your calculator will understand what you're talking about and will hopefully give you the right answer. If you think that the parentheses aren't important and so you type it in a different way, then your calculator might give you the wrong answer. The final thing I want you to talk to you about is how to use your calculator to check your work. On our order of operation problems, sometimes, we are supposed to be going one step at a time, one thing at a time, and getting our answer that way. So you should be showing me a lot of work. But maybe we're taking a quiz or a test, and when we're done with it, we want to check and see, did I do it correctly? Do I think I got the right answer? Well, your calculator knows the order of operations, and so your calculator can help you. Now, with your homework, I still want to see all of the work, and I want to see that you did one thing at a time. But this is a great way to check your work. Now, when we're checking our work, again, we have to make sure that we're typing it in using the right symbols and in the right places. Okay? So let's pretend like we did this problem, or maybe let's actually do this problem. If I'm going to do this problem, I get this, I get this, and I get this. And I think the answer is 32, and I want to check it on my calculator. So if you're going to check it on your calculator, just make sure that you're typing this in exactly how it looks. So it starts with a parentheses. It has a 6, and that's a minus 2. So I'm going to make sure I use my minus sign. Then just like we talked about earlier, it's important that your exponent goes outside of your parentheses, just like it's written on this paper. So close my parentheses. Now we haven't really talked about how to do an exponent other than 2. But if you look directly above the x squared button, there's another button right here. It looks like a little arrow pointing up like this. We call that the caret button, and that's how you can do an exponent that's not the number 2. So if I need to do to the third power, I can hit the caret button, and it shows a little arrow pointing up, and then I can type in the number 3. And then I'll finish it up with divided by 2. And I did a good job. 32 was the correct answer. Now again, it's important on your paper to show all these steps. This is just a way to check your work, see if you did it correctly. Let's try one more checking our work and see if we can do it correctly. All right, so here is my next problem. I'm going to do it by hand first, and then I'll check my work in a little bit. So we're going to start with 2 to the 4th. That's 2 times 2, which is 4, times 2, which is 8, times 2, which is 16. 16 minus 1 is 15. And I think the answer is 3. Now, this one's a little bit tricky to type in. If I type it in exactly how it looks, I'm actually not going to get the right answer. So let's try it. 2 to the power of 4 minus 1 divided by 5 equals. And this says the answer is supposed to be 15.8, which I'm pretty sure that's not the right answer. What happened here is when I typed this in, I followed the 1 with a divided by 5, and so my calculator thinks I just want to do 1 divided by 5. When in reality, I want the whole numerator to be divided by 5. So anytime you have these really large fractions with a lot of math happening on the top or on the bottom, there's always invisible parentheses there. And when you're typing it into your calculator, they actually can't be invisible parentheses. You are going to have to actually type them in. Just to be safe, I'm actually going to take the whole numerator and the whole denominator and put them both in parentheses. And so when I'm typing this into my calculator, I'm going to type it in with parentheses. Then I'll hit my division sign, and then I'll open up a new set of parentheses for the denominator. So hopefully if I type it in this way, close parentheses after you're done with the numerator. And then especially if there's math happening in the denominator, you really got to put a parentheses there and close parentheses after the denominator. And now I got the same answer that I got earlier when I did it by hand. So this is how you can check your work on those PEMDAS problems. Make sure to bring your calculator to class with you, and if you're ever getting a syntax error or if you ever have any other questions about how to use a calculator, you just have to ask.